There we go. Now you can hear me okay. Hi, welcome everybody. You know how it is. I actually just got out of the shower and I said to Nate, hey, what time is it? And he was like 1 o'clock. And I was like, right now? And ran right in here. So, yeah, so there we are. I took another gander at coloring the underside of my hair because the stuff that I got is like, you got to do it every week. So I don't know if you can kind of see a blue tint under there. We'll see how it turned out when it dries this time, huh? Steven Summers, thank you for the super chat. Says, thanks for picking my topic. I actually took a class on forgiveness back in college. We looked at it from a theological, psychological, and sociological perspective. One of the benefits of going to a Catholic college, it helped me a lot, actually. I went to a Catholic college as well, and I feel like a lot of what I learned there helped me a lot, so I totally get it. Steven Summers, thank you so much for the super chat, and thank you for the topic suggestions. So yeah, the topic that we're going to be covering today, everybody, is, I know I titled this, It's Hard to Forgive, because it is. And this was brought up in the Discord, specifically regarding cancel culture and how quickly we are to write someone off, even for something said or done many, many years ago. And at what point do we forgive? Are we able to forgive? And for me, it made me think about my own life and the times in my own life when I've had a hard time forgiving people. So there's only two people I can really think of that I had a really hard time forgiving that are like ones that I was like, this will take years, if ever. And, you know, I felt like it's because they really sucked as human beings. But the more time that I am distanced from the things that happen, the more I feel like I'm able to get a little bit more perspective and say, you know, maybe they're not bad people, they just made bad choices. And, you know, that makes me a little bit more willing to understand. So Shady X says, oh yeah, cancel culture is toxic as hell. I think it's a knee-jerk reaction, and I'll get into why I think it's a knee-jerk. Well, obviously it's a knee-jerk reaction, but I'll get into why I think it's so easy for people to kind of jump to that. Let's see. Maximilian says, the blue hair looks great. Thank you. We'll see how well it holds when it dries. My whole shower's blue, and you can see my fingernail beds are like a little blue. Not terrible, but like a little blue. Time is a good way to get perspective on forgiveness, says Steven Summers, for sure. What's his dude says, forgiveness is tough, but it is something I feel is important to do. And there's some people who argue the opposite. There's some people that say forgiveness is weakness. But anyway, just to kind of give you guys, because forgiveness is hard to do, and, you know, I think it's important to forgive people for stuff. So I figured I would share with you a little bit about my life without obviously going into names or dishing anyone's personal trash. People that probably know me in real life, which, thank you. Someone just, Mango Deeves just subscribed to my Twitch channel. Thank you so much. That's hilarious that you guys are hearing that right now, because normally we don't have the Twitch ones turned on YouTube, but I guess when it happens, it happens. Welcome. Yeah, no tea spilled here today. If you know me personally, you might be able to infer who I'm talking about. But anyway, I'm trying to tell you guys the stories just because if in any way it could kind of help you see how human it is, and maybe for me to helping talk through it will help me to get through it as well. So one of these I've actually mentioned recently on, I think it was on Power Up Pod, but one of the people who burned me professionally, who it's very hard for me to forgive, is a specific executive at Defy Media when I was there, who for whatever reason, I'd only met him once and like said hello, nice to meet him, that kind of thing, decided he didn't want me working on anything. He, I guess, just decided he didn't like me. And so I had just left SourceFed to take up a job at Defy Media, and was getting my footing there. And about a month after I was there, so still definitely getting my footing, this executive was brought on and pulled me off all my projects. So here I was on a 1-year contract, only a month into my 1-year contract, getting recast on all my shows. Like, they were just auditioning new hosts. And I said, you know, did I do something wrong? And like, at first I thought it was just a problem with one show. So I went to that show's producer and I was like, hey, did I do something wrong? Is there a reason I'm being pulled from the show and replaced? And they were all super vague about it. And then it happened on another show. And then eventually it happened with a show that I owned the rights to and that I produced and put my blood, sweat, and tears into. So I was like, okay, you cannot replace me on my own show. And not only replace me as host, but also gave it to another producer on a completely different channel. Like just 100% took my creative project and wanted to give it to someone else and stripped all of that away from me when that was my baby. And what I found out later, through the grapevine and through other people who knew me and liked me that worked there, they just said that person didn't like me. Just for whatever reason, he decided he didn't like me, and didn't think I was a good host and didn't want to put me on anything. And he felt that way about everyone who was formerly on SourceFed, even though he had never met any of us before. So like Lee and Elliot came in to pitch a show and he didn't give it a chance. And he tried to pull similar shady business with Joe, who was currently at that company too. All because this person just decided they didn't like SourceFed hosts or something like that. Some kind of beef like that. But to this day, whenever I hear that executive is involved in something, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be involved with that. No, thank you. I'd like to stay really, really far away from that because that guy's a jerk. So that's one that I feel like, and even though it's been a lot of time now, it's still very hard for me to acknowledge that human being's presence without a little bit of resentfulness. Steven Summer says, wow, did Phil cut this guy off in traffic? I have no idea. But it really sucked. Because I was like, dude, what do you have personally against us? And like, part of the reason of how I figured it out is when it happened to Joe too, we were kind of together able to surmise and, hear through the grapevine. But anyway, that person just stinks. And I'd keep trying with time to say maybe they just made bad choices. Maybe it was their own insecurity. Maybe there were other circumstances I wasn't aware of going on at the time. But to me, really forgiving means you're ready to let it go completely. And I'm still not really ready to let that go. I feel like I've made my peace coming to a place where, again, I think it was their choices and not necessarily that they're a horrible person. I think a lot of it depends on how they own up to it. And obviously this person never acknowledged or apologized for anything, which is a big part of it. I think they would probably deny it if called out on it to this day. I don't think they're a big, powerful executive of anything anymore. I don't frankly know. I'd only run into them in one other position, but it was not the same position they were in at Defy. But it's hard to do that and have people own up or have that kind of closure if you're not still in contact with that person. But I do believe that real forgiveness means you are willing to let it go completely. In my pre-marriage classes with Nate, they talked a lot about forgiveness and how important it is in a marriage, because if you say you're sorry and you say you've forgiven someone and you move past an argument, but you're not really past it, that could lead to a lot of passive aggressiveness. And then the next time you get in an argument, someone could bring up something from the argument before. And if no one's really beyond it, it's just going to grow into this thing. So like, you have to be good at like, if I forgive you, I'm really done. Which is very hard to do. Again, forgiveness is really hard. That's why I was like, yeah, I'm totally down to talk about that. And I found someone wrote online a quote that says, forgiveness does not mean that you forget. It does mean that you do not allow yourself to remain upset, angry, or confused about the situation any longer. And I thought that was a really good way to verbalize it. So obviously I'm still confused about the situation that happened professionally. And while it doesn't make me upset to the point where I get angry about it anymore, I'm still like, that guy stinks. So I guess I'm not really willing to let go of it completely. Another person who I can't even say took me forever, because again, I'm still in a very much like, that person stinks. I'm closer to being able to forgive this person than the Defy executive. And this is so cliche, but an ex who really burned me. There was an ex who cheated on me with someone that I introduced him to, and did so for months behind my back. And we were only dating 6 months. So like, I think we were probably only dating 2 months before he started running around with this person I introduced him to. But then still kept dating me for an additional 4 months. Anyway, when we broke up, I felt like it was out of nowhere, because he was just talking to me about making me keys for his apartment, because we had been dating 6 months. And then the next time I see him, which was supposed to be for Valentine's Day, he was like, yeah, I just can't do this anymore. Here's your Valentine's Day present. Bye. And I was like, what? So I was very hurt and confused. And then about a month or two later, I found out he had been dating this person I introduced him to since way before we broke up. So I was super salty about that. Plus, this person had a very narcissistic personality and was very egotistical and was very belittling to me and just really didn't treat me very well on a variety of levels. So I used to jokingly say, and this is horrible, and again, jokingly, that's the only person that if I found out got hit by a bus, not only would I not be sad about it, you'd probably find out I bribed the bus driver. So again, joking. But this was definitely, yeah. Took it home to Jenny, says, oh yeah, you talked about being broke up with on Valentine's Day and he was also cheating. Yes, exactly. That very same person. But that person, it has been so much time that I probably can say now, I forgive you to that person, because I honestly feel like how sad that this person was so insecure. And this was not the first time this person had cheated in a relationship. That I just at this point now hope that that person has figured out how to actually care about someone other than himself. Because otherwise I think he's going to have a very sad, miserable life. So that person, even though I, for a very long time, felt very mad at that person, now I just kind of hope, like, he's gotten it together for the sake of not only himself, but for anyone else he runs into. But that was someone that took me a really long time. I mean, that was years and years and years and years and years ago, to even just now come to a point where I'm like, you know what? I forgive that person. Like, what they did was really crappy, and I'm not going to forget what they did, and I never want to be friends with that person or anything like that, but, like, good riddance. I hope you do well in your life. Which is more than I can say about that Defy executive. It's also very hard for me to forgive people who have hurt those that I love. My sister's ex-fiance is a great example. Don't you be mean to my sister. Or someone who was really mean to Nate in a past time in his life. Those make me really, really angry. And I think if anyone were to ever hurt my Logan, there would be no way. I cannot foresee a future where I could forgive that person. Now, that being said, you hope that you grow and learn as a person and are able to open your heart and see things with enough perspective to forgive and let go. But that's really hard for me, and I think that's really hard for a lot of people. And really just in general, and this is kind of what's made me so, not depressed, because it's not full-on depression, but made me have so much kind of anxiety and stress about this whole quarantine and shelter-in-place thing, is the people who go online right now intentionally to inflict harm on others with their words, with their actions, whatever it may be. That to me is really upsetting, because again, don't hurt people I care about. Don't hurt strangers. Don't hurt anybody. So that really hits me hard, and it makes me immediately not like those people and not want to let go of my dislike of those people. Now, that's crazy seeming, because I've never even met those people in real life. But already I'm like, I don't like you. And I hold on to that, which is a problem, and is probably more of a problem on me. Cyclops TB, thank you for the super chat, says, it took me a long time to forgive most of my classmates for playing mean jokes on me. I finally did as we left high school. I'm sorry that happened to you. And if you were able to forgive them, like, after you left high school or soon after you left high school, you're stronger than me. All the kids that bullied me, it took me a really long time to let go of that. And still, I mean, not anymore, but I would say even as soon as 5-10 years ago, if people from high school would, like, friend request me on Facebook, I'd be like, oh, you don't get to be my friend now. We weren't friends then. You were mean to me then. We don't get to be friends now. Like, still very kind of salty and, having not let go about it. Thank you, George Pruitt. Thank you. I love you guys. This community is amazing. Steven Summers says, anger is a fire that just needs to burn out. And that's true. Pre-73 is laughing at Sassy Shish. It happens sometimes. Jonathan says, you were bullied? ? Oh, yeah. I was bullied so bad I had to change schools. I've done kind of a lot of internet talk about bullying, and before even cyberbullying was a thing, because I grew up in my young childhood without the internet. The internet came of age as I came of age, and that generation. But yeah, I was really bullied, and in 5th grade had to change schools because of it. So yeah, I can talk a lot about that. But that's another naked truth for another day. In fact, I'm positive we've done a naked truth on bullying at some point, where I probably shared a lot of that. But yeah, I mean, with a lot of these situations, that I mentioned, I'm being very real with you guys. There are some people that, I've come further in my journey to try to forgive. Some people I have not come very far in my journey of trying to forgive. Obviously, the fresher it is, the harder it is. But the one place where I do feel like I'm getting better at exercising forgiveness is, like I said, in my marriage. That was something that in our premarital classes they really stuck to, how important it was. Because if you say you're past an argument and you're not past an argument, even if it's fine when you forget about it, the second it comes back up, it's going to come back up stronger. And that over time is one of the things that can lead to a marriage falling apart. So I really try to make an effort when Nate and I have a disagreement over something to, like, if I say I'm going to let it go, really let it go. And the way that I can at least do that in our marriage is when I think about it in the grand scheme of things, is this argument that we're having right now worth our marriage? No, it's not. So if I'm able to let it go, I let it go. And it happens. Llama Dungeon says, wow, bullying to the point of having to change schools, that's some intense bullying. Yeah, it was some intense bullying. It's done. But things all worked out in the long run. Daniel Casaban says, I think that's why you're protective of your friends and family, because you know what it's like to be bullied. It's 100% why I get so mama bear protective of everybody else, because I know how much it sucked when it was me. And I didn't really have anyone around to defend me. Like, the most my parents could do was transfer schools, which is what they did. They talked to the principal about it multiple times, and when that didn't help, then they pulled me into a different school. But, I didn't really have any, like, friends that were able to stick up for me or anything like that at the time. So I know how hard that can be. So I always then want to be the person that sticks up for other people when they're in that situation. I want to be the person I didn't have, if that makes sense. Because mean people stink. And that's, I think, why I get so salty when I see even strangers being mean to other strangers on the internet. 'Cause I'm like, why are you just being mean for the sake of being mean? Like, you crappy person. And it makes me a little bit nuts. Thomas says, let it go, as Elsa would say. That is right. 100% yes. And I mean, regarding cancel culture, to kind of take it back to where this conversation started, certainly how people can own up to poor choices factors in. And then there are people who, even if someone does own up and try to apologize for it, they don't want to believe any type of apology anyway. And I think, and I could be totally wrong here, but this is just my hypothesis, is that because even if it was something said 10 years ago, if you are just hearing it now, then that's a fresh wound for you. So you have just been hurt by it. So you don't have that time to have perspective on it, even though that person might have had time to have perspective on it, or people who were directly related to that incident. As a complete stranger that's just discovering it on social media, that's a fresh wound to you. And I think that's why a lot of people are like, I'm not ready to hear your apology. And is that a mistake? Probably. I mean, when I see it so that's me looking at it from a spectator standpoint. What if I'm looking at it from the other standpoint? So not that I'm in any way saying that I'm a celebrity, but there were definitely dumb things that I said online when I was in the beginning of my SourceFed career and my internet career. Not really realizing this stuff stays on the internet forever. You should probably be more careful with what you say. And also being very young and not having fully fleshed out viewpoints on life yet. I definitely said things and did things on that show that now I look back at and cringe and think, oh, I can't believe I said that. Because now, being given more life perspective, and I know Phil talks about this a lot too, your opinions on things change. Your outlooks on things change. The way that you speak about things change. So then from that perspective, is it unfair for someone to judge me now based on something I did 5 or 6 years ago? Maybe unfair is not the right word, but I would certainly argue for, hey, I've grown a lot since then. I've become a very different person since then. But there's some people who are just unwilling to hear it. Again, maybe it's a fresh wound for them. Maybe they're very cancel culture-ish, where like, you did this one thing once, you're done forever. But looking at it from the other perspective, then I think it's very important to look at people as people and be willing to forgive. So I can see both sides of it, for sure. Curtis Jeremiah, thank you for the super chat, says, Trisha got bullied in school, but look who's ended up being on a popular internet show and having a YouTube career with a massive fandom. You're very kind. Biggest Uno reverse ever bullies. Well, I always liked to believe as a kid, because I watched a lot of movies where the nerdy kid grew up to be the smart rich person. So as a kid, I always liked to believe that all the people that were mean to me were going to end up stuck in their hometown with dead-end jobs, and I was going to be the big successful one because I was the smart one that studied. And I don't know if that's exactly how it worked out, but I am happy with where my life landed. So I have no salt about that. Shady X says, I was tied to a tree as a kid once. Won't forgive that either. I'm so sorry. Ugh, other kids are so stinking mean. So stinking mean. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because I thought about doing Naked Truths, like, specifically to apologize for certain things that I did back in the day on the internet that I regret, but at the same time, I don't want to, like, redraw attention to those things if people have forgotten about them. I don't know, but maybe it would be good to do. Maybe it would be cathartic, or it would be good to have out there. I don't know. GK Gamer Fan says, that's an interesting point. Should you delete old videos, tweets that no longer line up with who you are and you'd be judged for? I don't know. I mean, if you have the ability to do so, maybe. But that kind of opens up the larger Pandora's box of how much do we go back and not necessarily erase memories, but kind of censor who we were before, or do we own up to that and say, well, yes, that's who I was, but here's how I've grown and learned from it, fully knowing that people could stumble upon old stuff and still doubt you for that. It's pretty. Roberto Velasquez says, it's taken me years to get to a place emotionally and mentally where I started forgiving people. Yeah, because it's hard. It's not easy, but I do think it's important to do. Catnip Ninja, thank you for the super chat, says, I hate that people say you have to forgive someone for your own sake. You can move on without forgiving someone. Some people don't deserve it. And that is a viewpoint that a lot of people have too. Some people don't deserve forgiveness. And, when you look at, like, kind of the really awful figures in history, say Hitler, like people that are mass serial killers, that kind of thing, maybe those people don't deserve it. And really, that's a very personal decision for you to decide. I know for me, it would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to forgive people like that. So I get it. Daniel Casabon says, I don't think so. Censoring is changing your past. Own your mistakes. Right. And that's true too. David R says, I think you have to own up to who you were before you've really changed. Change is a road, not a switch you flip. I like that. Thank you, David R, for that perspective. So my question for you guys is, do you think forgiveness can be a weakness? Why or why not? Because I found that a lot online when I was kind of reading up on this to do this Naked Truth this week, people saying forgiveness is a weakness. So I thought I'd, throw that out to you. I don't think forgiveness is a weakness, but that's probably due to the way I was raised, both kind of the morality of how I was raised, with religion and, just kind of my life up until this point. I think forgiveness is something that's really hard to do, and it shows strength. But as always on The Naked Truth, I love an open discussion and dialogue, and I'm happy to hear kind of the other side of what this is. So Curtis Jeremiah says, no, but technically yes, yes, but technically no, question mark. Right. Let's see. Maximilian says, I think change is also something you believe in yourself, not a thing that others have to validate for you if they don't believe that you've changed. That's a good point too. Steven Summer says, the hardest problem I have is forgiving myself. Am I alone with that? No, I think a lot of people have that issue. Roberto Velasquez says, forgiveness is only a weakness if you're forgiving to avoid dealing with a situation, but then it's really apologies for the sake of it. Right. And to me, I would say that's not real forgiveness. That's trying to avoid confrontation. Cyclops TV says, forgiveness is never a weakness, it's a part of life. Brian Williams says, forgiveness is a virtue, but it doesn't mean allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. Right. And I think that's where the line is as well. Forgiveness is better for you than the other person. It's just not healthy to hold on to that kind of stuff, says Cami A. Yeah. It does. When you are finally in a place where you can forgive and let go of that, it does feel so good to just be like, I can let go of that now. Like, I don't need to hold on to that anger anymore, which is lovely. So yeah, a lot of people here are kind of in the camp that real forgiveness is very hard to do and shows more strength than anything. So here's another question, or I guess just tell me about a time when you were able to forgive someone and how you got there. If you're comfortable sharing. If you're not comfortable sharing, totally get it. But if you are comfortable sharing, tell me about a time that you were able to forgive someone and mentally kind of how you got to that place. Was it just time? Was it something else? Humor Dubai says, honestly, it was freeing to forgive my ex-wife for cheating. Whoa, dude. I mean, I dealt with that in a dating situation. I couldn't imagine dealing with that in a marital situation. And that's huge of you to be able to forgive that. I don't know that I could be that strong. I'd like to think I could, but whew. Barrow C says, I don't think at all about the people who've been the worst to me. To forgive them, I would have to think about them, and I'd rather think about better people instead. You know, I know I've said this on The Naked Truth before, but it's probably been a while. I had an acting teacher once say, when you're networking, some people are your people and some people are not your people. Don't spend your time on not your people. And it's some of the best life advice I could ever have, because not everyone's going to like you and you're not going to like everybody. And it's overly idealistic to think that's the case. I used to think that was the case, and I tried to people please everyone, and it gave me such heartache and such frustration. And especially when I started working on the internet and all the negative comments came flying in by the hundreds, or bullying in school, like all of that, when I was like, but I'm just trying so hard to be liked. And once I kind of really wrapped my head around that, like, some people are your people, some people are not your people. Don't waste your time on not your people. As soon as I really applied that to my life, oh man, so much better. Forget about the not your people and just focus on being wonderful and giving to the people who are your people. It just makes for such a happier life. It's why I believe in moderation in my Twitch chat and here on YouTube, because not your people can get out of town. BW1 says, took many years to forgive my dad. Accepting and moving forward is hard, but it's something you need to do more for yourself than the other person. I'm glad I did it before he passed a year ago tomorrow. BW1, thank you so much for being so open and sharing that. That is huge. And yeah, I can't imagine if there's someone that you were trying to forgive or in the process of forgiving and then they passed and you never get the opportunity. You're right. It is all about you and how you handle it. So I'm glad that you were able to forgive before that happened. But, oh, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. It is not easy. Brian Williams brings up a good point. When forgiving people, do take the time to ask yourself if bringing it back up with them will help or hurt the situation. Sometimes forgiveness needs to be shared, but sometimes it's best inside. Oh, yeah. Like I'm saying, like, that ex that I was so mad at forever, I would never reach out to them just to be like, hey, let's dredge this back up so I can tell you I forgive you. Because it's not for him. It's for me. So just me knowing, like, hey, I'm at a point where I can forgive this. That's all. So how I wrap my mind around it and deal with it. But yeah, I wouldn't dredge that back up. Jeffrey B. Williams says, appreciating everybody will essentially make most people like you. Maybe, in theory. Let's see. Daniel Casaban says, life is too short, as they say. Don't hold grudges. But holding grudges is very human, so I understand if you can. David R. says, I hope one day I can forgive my sister. She's causing dark times for too many people. Only time will tell. I hope that you're right. I hope that in time you can forgive your sister, because, when it's that kind of like family break apart bad, that is huge. I've been fortunate that I'm still, pretty close with my mom and my dad and my sister. But I know not every family is so lucky, and I can't imagine having that kind of rift. That's crazy. Brian Williams says, my mother cheated on my father when I was a child, then married who she cheated with. It's taken years of continually forgiving her for that to make progress in our relationship. And that's huge on your part. Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. Carl B says, hello from UK. Hello back to you in UK. Great message. Especially during the mental health week here in UK. Is it in the US too? Probably. If it is, I haven't seen it, but I feel like pretty much every time I go online, we're celebrating mental health awareness, which is fantastic. I think we should always be celebrating mental health awareness. I would love to see the stigma go away, and I think everyone should have a counselor or a therapist in the same way that people have personal trainers for their body. You should have a trainer that helps you out with your mind stuff, because I think that's even more important. But until the stigma goes away from that, there's not really as much stigma where I live in Los Angeles. Almost everyone has a therapist anyway, and it's like considered a luxury. Like, ooh, you're so lucky you have a therapist. Oh, does your insurance cover it? Like, it's something that people are into, but I definitely know in other parts of the world, and certainly in other parts of the United States, it's looked down upon. So I wish it got to the point where we would all talk about it like it was a luxury and a wonderful, healthy thing, because I think it is. Jonathan, I am the older sister, my little sister. Yeah, my little sister is actually supposed to get married this September and doesn't know if she's going to have to postpone things, or already I know her venue's not available anymore on the date that she chose. And so it's such a huge bummer. But yeah, my little sister, I love her dearly. Let's see. Oh, all the UK buddies high-fiving in chat. I love it. UK represent indeed. Well, thank you all so much for chatting with me today. Before we kind of wrap things up, I just want to leave you with the message of, if you're watching this, forgiveness is hard because you're trying to figure out how to forgive someone. I would say do yourself the solid and don't feel like you have to forgive before you're ready. Because I do believe that forgiveness is completely being over it, to the point where you're not angry or sad or hurt by it anymore. You're acknowledging that you're not letting that hurt you anymore and letting go of it. And that is very hard to do. And I think if you try to tell yourself you've forgiven before you're ready to forgive, then you might end up getting more hurt in the long run. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. This is just kind of what my life has taught me. And I care about this community to the same extent that I care about all of my friends. This is just my online community of friends. So I don't want you to get hurt any more than is necessary going through life anyway. So anyway, that's what I'd like to share with you today. And I know we're kind of all going through tougher times now. So if we can do it together, digitally, then let's try to do that. Couple things I want to plug in case you haven't seen my other stuff going on. I am currently doing a very big giveaway with AMD where I'm giving away a brand new graphics card, a VR capable graphics card, I should say, an HTC Vive Pro VR headset kit, and a copy of Half-Life Alyx. If you want to enter that giveaway, all the information of how to do that is on the Half-Life Alyx gameplay highlights video that I posted on this channel just a couple days ago. And you can click that and then enter to win. It's completely free. It's shipping to a bunch of other countries. So it's not just US only. And I would love it if someone from this community was able to win that giveaway. That would make me very happy. And there's 2 winners, so you have double the chance to win. So anyway, go enter that giveaway. It's one of the highest value giveaways I've done in a long time, so I'm really excited about it. Go enter that giveaway if you haven't already. I did just post a Half-Life Alyx highlight gameplay cut, so if you haven't seen that, I got scared a lot, and it's funny. Watching people get scared in VR is funny, myself included. Over on Twitch, I've been streaming a ton. I'm going to be streaming there tomorrow morning, playing some Final Fantasy VII Remake dressed as Tifa. We're trudging along. We're getting through it. We're not quite at the end yet. We probably have at least, I'm going to say 3 or 4 more streams before we get to the end of the game. But come join. That's a really good time. I see a couple of you shouting up Power Up in chat. Power Up. Steven says Power Up was so good yesterday. Yeah, we had Steve Zaragoza on Power Up. If you're like, what's Power Up? It's a podcast that I'm doing with Maud Garrett. And we stream it live in video format to my Twitch channel on Fridays. And then it hits all the podcast networks over the weekend. So that's probably, yesterday's is probably hitting now. And then the VODs go up on Geek Bomb's YouTube channel. So that's a new thing I'm working on. Lots of fun stuff going on. And join the Discord if you haven't already, because that's the best place to see all of that and kind of keep track of it all in one spot. So thank you, Jenny, for being here and modding. You are awesome. The mods are instrumental in helping me keep this community as kind and lovely of a place as it is. So thank you. Please know that I appreciate you all of the time. I appreciate all the mods in this channel. You guys are awesome. Thank you. And I haven't done an Amazon live stream in a while, but I think I'm going to do one today. So after I sign off for Naked Truth, I am going to put some makeup on my face and put some clothes on my body, and then stream to Amazon talking about geeky accessories for both men and women. I know some of my Amazon live streams that have been geek fashion have kind of focused on lady geek fashion because that's what I have and know and love. But I have also purchased crazy amounts of geek fashion accessories for Nate, for Steve Zaragoza, and for all of the geeky men in my life. So if you're like, hey, I kind of want to watch a Trisha live stream about fun things to buy. It's like that old show I did for Escapist for a long time, Take My Money, except for on Amazon. So I'm going to do that in a little bit. And the Amazon live streams, if you're in the Discord, I'll make sure to post the chat there. But basically, you can always find them at amazon.com/shop/Trisha Hershberger. That's where my Amazon live streams happen. So if you go there and click follow, it should tell you when I'm live, in theory. But yeah, I'm going to do that probably in about a half hour or so. I'm going to aim for 2 o'clock. We'll see if that happens. So, here, I'll put it in chat because I know a bunch of you are asking, and I probably said it very fast. And if you're like me, and you have a visual memory, you will remember it better if you see it visually. That's how I work. Or just join the Discord. That makes it easy on everyone. Okay, everybody, have a lovely and happy Memorial Day weekend. I know most of us aren't doing anything out of our normal shelter-in-place weekend activities, unfortunately, because we're all stuck inside. But if you are doing something fun this week, let me live vicariously through you. I adore you all. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you soon. Bye, everybody.